Hello there, right here, and what you see behind me is an automatic powder snow farm. Powder snow is a new block in 1.17 that has tons of cool things that you can do with it. I did a whole entire video going over all the crazy things you can do with this new block, so make sure you check that out. I'll have a link down below. Now, despite tons of things you can do with this new block, it is actually very difficult to obtain it in large quantity. But during the live stream where we check out the newest snapshots of Minecraft, we designed up this very cool farm here which allows you to automate the process of obtaining large amounts of this very useful block. Now, the way you can get powder snow is by having an empty cauldron that is in cold enough area so that when it does rain, it will snow in this area instead of raining. So you can see it's raining over there, but it's snowing right here. And if you go high enough up, you can guarantee that it will be snowing up here and there won't be any rain. And doing this above the mountain biome is recommended. Now, the cauldron exposed to the sky with nothing above it, the game will add layers of powder snow to the cauldron. Very similar to cauldrons filling up with rainwater. And Deadly MC and Cheater Codes actually looked into how the game decides when a cauldron should get another level in it. And they say it's very similar to random ticks, which allow stuff like crops to grow, grass to spread, and other things like that. But it's not actually using random ticks. The cauldron does have to be within the range of the player's random tick area, which is an 8-chunk radius cylinder around the player from the bottom of the world to the top of the world. And the first layer will look like that. Then it will grow to a second layer. The final stage is the third layer. But on average, it takes 3 hours for a cauldron to fill completely up. And you have to make sure not to sleep away the nights, because that will prevent snow from falling for the next entire Minecraft day. And at this stage, the player can actually use an empty bucket on the cauldron, and this will scoop it up into one powder snow bucket. And then the cauldron once again will be empty, ready to collect some more snowfall. Now, the powder snow bucket does not stack, similar to like water buckets or milk buckets. But when right-clicked, it will produce a block. And using the bucket is the only way you can move this block around. So right after this really cool snapshot came out, we hopped onto our testing server, and with the viewers, we built up this automatic powder snow bucket farm. We got tons of cauldrons all lined up here in a cold biome very high up off of the ground. All of them are waiting for snowfall to be collected in them. Then we have a place for the player to scoop them all up while he is AFK. So the player will hop inside this minecart here, and you'd be in survival. Go ahead and turn this thing on. And then it's going to move your player into pointing at each of the cauldrons. Player, all he has to do is hold down right click. You can do this AFK by pressing F3 plus T. And then when that screen comes up, just lift up on your right mouse button. Now your guy will automatically be always holding down that button forever. You can just go AFK and you will get tons and tons of the new powdered snow. And once the player goes through the entire system, you can either have the player sitting at a special location waiting for more snowfall, or you can make this setup as big as area in which the snow can accumulate. So the player will be always busy trying to pick up new snowfall. You can't see too much while you're running it, but the player will be hopping in the minecart and it follows this track here. First thing it does is it activates this detector rail here. It starts a clock over there that starts dropping the player some more buckets. Because every time the player scoops up one powder snow, it's going to be contained inside the bucket, so the bucket gets used up. Then the minecart comes over here, activates this detector rail, and this starts another clock right here, which drops out more buckets for the player so that there'll be a big enough number to sustain him when he reaches that area. The player is going to move this direction, and the entire time you're sitting here aiming upwards and forwards. So every time you go in front of a new cauldron, your player is automatically going to scoop up each of the cauldrons that are completely full. Any cauldrons that are partially full, like level 1 or level 2, won't get scooped up until they are level 3. Now you want to have your inventory full so none of the powder snow can end up in your inventory. Instead, it will drop because it can't stack with the empty buckets, and then it will hit up against this iron bar here and fall down into this water stream. This is collecting all the items in a central location. The player continues this going along, scooping them up. So when the player makes it all the way down to the very far end, right in here is going to be a bunch of new buckets that's going to refill his stack. And then when the player goes over top of this detector rail with the minecart, it's going to turn off this clock, and any buckets that the player doesn't pick up are going to be put back into the dropping system to be used next time. That's what the hopper down there is for. And then it also activates the next clock, which is dropping more buckets. So when the player makes it that far, he gets his stack resupplied again. And each of these detector rails do the exact same thing. Then at the very end, they will be turned off. The entire system is very tileable. Every 4 blocks is identical. Each of these rows here are 16 cauldrons long. Because you can only hold buckets up to a stack of 16, you don't want to use up your entire stack, otherwise it's going to fill up with powder snow, and then you won't be able to pick up any more buckets. So always want at least one bucket in your hand slot. So by making this length, we can guarantee that the player won't use up all the buckets by the time he comes to a refill station. And that's what all these little dropper systems are, just to refill the player's buckets before going down another row. Now, if you're just doing a normal right click, you can kind of see the pattern of which cauldrons get scooped up and which ones get skipped. Because when you hold down your mouse button, the game will check every 4 game ticks to see if there's something it can do with that thing in your hand. So it might check like right here, and then it waits 4 game ticks, and it might check here, and waits 4 game ticks, it might check here. And because of this, it's not going to click every single one. But that's okay, because the snow layers come in so slowly. When the player goes through, he'll just scoop up the ones that are completely filled. So he'll eventually get them all. Now you can also use an auto clicker, which will skip less of them. But you gotta make sure that the devices over here will resupply you with enough buckets. Now I designed the resupplying system to be very simple. All there is 2 observers, which one gets pushed in front of the other one and produces an observer clock. This puts off a lot of signals very quickly. So if I go over here and activate this detector rail right here, you see it pushes these 2 together, and it's just going to power this dropper. And since it's powering this block, it also will power anything touching that block. So it's also going to power this dropper. And that just cycles items from here up to here, and then from here out on top of this hopper here. And since the hopper is also being powered by this block right here, it can't always pick up items that is on top of it. Because of that, a number of buckets will accumulate on top of it. And then when the player comes by in his minecart, he's close enough to pick up these items. And then when this one is powered, it's going to go underneath here, power some redstone, which is go around and power these 2 pistons, turning off this clock and also turning on this clock. Since there's 2 pistons, one goes to the previous item dispensing system, and then this one goes to the next one. Now in the past, you wouldn't be able to do this type of redstone to activate these pistons, but since 1.16, they added so that any redstone pointing into any block in front of it will power it. And even though the redstone goes down and up here and kind of circles in a loop, they are still technically pointing into each of these pistons, so they will get power. And you could even like remove this redstone dust and it should still work. If I power that, that's powering that piston, and this piece is powering back and powering that piece. So it's kind of strange, but it's really cool what we can do with it. So since these dropper systems are using up buckets over time, we need to resupply them with more buckets. So we got this hopper pointing into it. Then we have a chest minecart going back and forth, pulling it from a central location where you can come in and put in some more buckets, and then it will grab it and distribute it among all the different refilling stations. So to make buckets isn't too difficult. You could just build one of my simple iron farms or even my really fast one. I'll give you plenty of iron to use for this. Now in this demonstration, it may feel like we're going through a lot of buckets, but keep in mind it takes a long time to fill cauldrons up. When you're using this, you kind of want to aim sort of low, so that way the items get shot off that direction out of your inventory. We don't want to be extremely low because when you come around the corner, it takes a while for your guy to kind of straighten up. So somewhere right in here, I'd recommend aiming. If you notice any of your buckets landing on the rails, it means you're aiming too high. You need to aim a little bit lower. Now the buckets that do fall into this water stream over here are going over to a simple collection system. We just have these water streams. You can either make them drop down or you can make them continue like this with the water stream on top and ice underneath. That way items don't get stuck. You can also put a slab here if you're afraid of items not getting enough momentum there, but they should be able to cross that. Then all of the water streams come to a single one going this direction. I use gates here instead of like signs or banners because those are tile entities. You just gotta make sure that these guys don't get powered by anything. And then they just get picked up by this hopper system and put into a bunch of chests. But because they don't stack, it takes a lot of room in order to store these guys. So if you do have shulkers, you might want to put them into shulker boxes and store those in chests. Now when it comes to how big you should make this, I would recommend making it the same size that we made our nether wart farm on Prototech. This is 6 chunks by 6 chunks. Even though the random ticked area is an 8 chunk radius cylinder around the player. If the player is in a minecart moving along the entire system, the random ticked area is going to move around with him. But having this size here, doesn't matter which corner the player is at, everything within it is going to be filling up with snow. Now alternatively, you could have the player mostly AFKing in the center and then have that circle shape around him. And then only once all of them are full does the player go through and scoop them all up. And you can even have player go through like a second time to scoop up any he missed. Another way by running the farm is by doing different stuff in the area. And then when you see the majority of these are full, you just hop your minecart, scoop up as many as you can, and then go back to doing whatever you were doing. But a recent trend that we've been seeing with how to obtain new items is that you have to kind of go to the special location in order to farm them up. This is something they mentioned during the Minecraft live event with the amethyst. They didn't want people to take the amethyst budding blocks to their base and just let them grow up there and farm them there. They want to force you to go to the amethyst in the ground and farm it at the location. This is pretty much the exact same thing with the powder snow. Not only do you have to come to a cold biome to collect it, but you actually have to be here in the area in order for the cauldrons to fill up. And so far it's pretty manual, with the player actually having to scoop it up and not being able to use dispensers. So putting this farm at some location that either you go a lot, that's a cold biome, or other people on your server go a lot, will allow it to kind of work in the background while you're doing other things. Otherwise, recommend having different farms in the area that you can use or AFK while AFKing this, because this is going to take a while. If you want to use up that entire area of the circle around the player, you could put cauldrons right here where we have these iron bars. This is actually where we originally had the cauldrons. And then when you go ahead to scoop these, you want to scoop right on the edge, or even like scoop on this foot piece right here. So you're angled quite over, and that way the buckets will go into the water. So one time you could scoop all of these, the next time you can aim a little bit higher and scoop all of these top ones. So it's completely up to you how you want to do that. You could essentially double the amount of cauldrons you could put in here, which would probably make this build more worth a building. All in all, it's quite simple and compact, but we'll probably be coming out with some more different types of designs. So if you're watching this video in the future, make sure to check the description, because I always put in new versions in there. And if you guys would like to build up this design, I have provided the world download in the description. This is also a world that contains a bunch of my other farms and testing stuff, but I have a teleport here that'll take you to the farm area. The rates of this farm really depends on how big you make it, and most importantly, if you're able to not sleep away nights. It'll be interesting to see how servers handle this, because a lot of servers have mods which allow them to sleep away the night with like a single player in the bed, or a majority of players in the bed. And like all the farms I create, I design them live on stream. You can see how the process works. And if you ever miss a stream, you can watch the archived streams over at my Twitch videos, and it might be even streaming right now, as I stream Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. If you made this far in the video, make sure to give the video a like, as well as share with other Minecrafters. And don't forget to go ahead and subscribe, as I will be making a lot of cool things using these new powder snow. I would like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!